Hello everybody and welcome to episode 63 of Competitive Magic with the Carnies. I'm your host from Italy, Andrea Mengucci, and joining me we have Anthony Lee from Australia.
Hola.
And that's it. It's just gonna be me and Anthony today. Javier is just having a good time in the hottest country of Europe.
Spain.
I'm sure he's enjoying the podcast from home now. Anthony, do you think Javier will listen to this podcast afterward?
It depends on whether we say enough nice things about him, I think. So let's try to keep it friendly, you know? Don't be too mean to poor old Javier.
No, never.
Never.
I want to shout out the patron that we have, Salvatore from Chicago. He on the Discord, he said a lot of very many mean things to Chicago style pizza.
Oh.
And Anthony, you had something. Yeah, right? That was weird because, all the Chicago people love it. But I guess his name comes from Italy, so, he has a mixed opinion there.
Well, fair enough. I'll take his word for it, I suppose. But, well, maybe I won't take that. I guess if I want to try it, it's specifically not taking his word for it, right? Yeah, that sounds like that's how... Yeah, anyway, we'll see.
All right. So this episode we'll be talking about Pioneer, as the American RC just took place. It had 1 million people, right? 1,300 players. That is the largest event after COVID. And then we're gonna talk about a little bit of modern after the bans, and then finally standard. So yeah, let's get things started. So these American RC, you had a lot of interest in it, right? Because you helped testing some of your friends, and some of them did very well.
Yeah.
So yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I was helping out Team Twink, which did very well. I was particularly invested in Isaac Bullwinkle doing well in this event. It's his first big paper event, and he's someone that we were very interested in working with. So yeah, I was particularly interested in him doing well, and he asked me to join their server instead of just helping him directly, which I was happy to do, and I was very impressed. They have a lot of young up-and-comers, and also Rob Pisano. They're all very promising, They communicate very well. They play a lot. They have a lot of energy, a lot of positive energy. And yeah, I was very impressed. I was very impressed by the whole lot of them, actually. And they have great results. You see Isaac here he came 10th, so it was incredible, by the way. He started out 0-2, and when your friend starts 0-2, you're like, oh. And he just won 11 in a row. And drew into to lock up the Pro Tour invite. And Daniel Weiser won the event, which is huge as well. Like, it's a really big event with a lot at stake, so that was great to see. And we had some other good performances as well, as you saw, like Abe Corrigan finished X4, which is a very respectable result for his final tournament ever before he continues on. He's been snapped up by Wizards of the Coast and is going to work for Play Design, so... we lost a very promising player there, but Wizards gained one. So I think the game will be better for it, actually. I expect him to do a lot of good work. He thinks really, really well, speaks really, really well. So yeah, there were other good results as well. So yeah, I think the team did great. I was happy with how we worked, of course, and can't complain about the results.
Yeah, I had my birthday dinner in New York with Kalk and some other friends, and Abe came along. He told me that he's gonna be working for Wizards next year, and this one will be the last one, which is it's cool. Like when people that are good for the game are hired by Wizard, you're a little bit happy about it, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's sad that we won't get to test with him anymore as we'd hoped, but it's great that he'll be able to do something, concretely good for the game that we're all very invested in. So, it's nice that he had a good swan song.
Yeah, so this tournament was actually very high stake. We were talking about it before starting. First place was $30,000 and a World's Invite. That's kind of like
I didn't notice
a
this.
Pro Tour,
I had no idea it was so much money on the line. I really had no idea.
Back in the days, Pro Tours gave you $40,000 and the World's Invite, so it's very similar here. Wow. with this prize. And so yeah, congratulations to Daniel Weiser for winning with Yorian. Yeah, so talking a little bit about the talking a little bit more about the meta game, as I've said in one of my in one of my tweets after the event, I really enjoyed the look of this top 16. Uh, it's less diverse, but it is very interactive, and you know how some people combine the diversity with how good a format
Uh
is,
huh.
and I've never been a fan of that. While I love modern, and you know, it's used to be the most diverse format. Pioneer actually before the bans of Karn and this last set was super diverse. Maybe Pioneer was actually the most diverse format of all. But I guess that diversity kind of went away. But in exchange, you have a lot more super interactive deck. Like you have Rakdos, you have Phoenix, you have Azor's Control. Uh, yeah, I really like the sound of this top 8 and top 16.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know how much the bans had to do with it. I think they had some impact because Mono Green was, of course, not really an interactive deck and not one that encouraged you to interact either, which I think is important. The emergence Amalia combo actually had a big impact on this. I think like the fact that you can interact profitably with the Amalia combo encourages interaction. I think so. It replacing Mono Green. It looks like you were swapping out one combo deck for another combo deck, but it actually has a huge impact in terms of what other decks you play and how you beat them, right? Like if you want to fight mono green, you just race them, right? You play, I don't know, something like mono white and just zerg them down with creatures, and that's a good strategy against them. But with Amalia, you're more encouraged to interact. Yeah, so deck like for example, I think the rise of blue white control is probably very much linked to the new Amalia deck, right? Amalia might, in my opinion, I think Amalia might be the best card for blue white control printed in a very long time. So yeah, the metagame was this kind of game is definitely a lot more interactive, and yet if you want to play that kind of combo deck, you still can, which I think is important, right? I know some people don't enjoy standard gameplay specifically because it requires that you play interactive gameplay. So, you know, you have to play those long grindy games, and if you don't want to, you know, sometimes it's a bit tough that you can't opt out. But Pioneer does give you that choice, I think. So I think it's really good. This is kind of like the perfect balance, you know. And when we were testing, we really noticed it because you know I suppose I think Pioneer's gotten a bit of a harsh rap, honestly, up to now. But you know, I agree with some of it, obviously, and a lot of us do. But we definitely noticed when we were testing a lot for this event that the games were actually just very, very enjoyable. They were just more fun than they used to be overall. It stands out a lot. If you didn't like Pioneer as much before, I think you should really try again.
Yeah, one of the like the additional combo deck that did well was this Bent Lotus Field by James Gates in the top 16,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically Lotus Field, the combo deck that we knew used to be great before and now really struggled this weekend, but he had his like very cool addition of Strict Proctor, I guess
Oh,
to have a better matchup against Amalia, right?
makes sense to me. Seems like a good card
Yeah.
in that, against that deck. It's like playing
Yeah,
against everyone.
so this one is like an additional combo deck. There's kind of a lack of aggro decks. Aggro decks used to be super popular in Pioneer. You had Mono White, you had Boros Convoke, Boros Heroic, you had even the Spirits decks, but they didn't do very well, I guess, in the face of Izzet Phoenix and Rakdos Midrange being the first and second most popular
Well,
deck.
they're also horrible against Demalia. That's the problem. Like they're very bad against Demalia, and now you don't have the mono green decks to bully anymore. So they took away one of your good matchups and replaced it with a deck that has 4 Lunark veterans. That's, well, you know, it's tough. It's a bit tough for the aggro decks, I think, but there might be hope. You might be able to, because I mean, this is still very early on, and I think Smuggler's Copter is, if it's a good card, I think it's going to be good in aggressive decks, especially. So we might still have some things to see there. And by the way, you know, when now I mentioned Smuggler's Copter, it's not that much of that around here, right? Like all the Skies Fall and stuff didn't need to be, right? It's not many
Yeah,
smugglers.
there is only
Yeah, that's it.
yeah,
That's all the smugglers. You're looking at
there
all of
is
them.
only I believe very few smugglers copter around.
Mm-hmm.
Some Rakdos decks are playing it in a very interesting build that may be the future of Rakdos midrange, the one by Paul Green, who made the top four, playing 4 copies of Inti, Seneschal of the Sun, and 3 copies of Smuggler's Copter. So really going very deep with card selection there.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I was definitely very impressed by this combination of cards. And there is an additional copter deck in the hands of Daniel Hall in
Mm-hmm.
13th place. And he was playing basically the deck that got Smuggler's Copter
Yeah.
banned in the first place. I don't know if
Yeah,
you remember playing Pioneer
this
in
is the
those
kind of deck.
days.
This is the kind of deck I'm talking about. That when I say that, if there's going to be an aggro deck that can support Smuggler's Copter, yeah, I think this is the kind of deck that I think, if you want to play aggro decks, that I'd start looking in this kind of area. I think that's exactly it.
Yeah, so Mono Black Aggro. I used to play the Night Market Lookout, the 1 mana 1 that
Ugh.
drains you when you crew.
No thanks.
But that one was replaced by Fairy Dream Thief. And outside of that, you have Geeks Yawgmoth Predator, which is a
It looks
really
so
nice
good in
card
this.
in a
It
deck
looks
like this.
incredible in this deck, right? Like you have the fairy. It works amazingly with Fairy Dream Thief as well, by the way. But in Smuggler's Copter as well. Like evasive cards and cheap cards are both so good with Gix, and Gix also encourages you to interact. If you can remove blockers, it immediately rewards you by drawing cards. I think Gix is really huge for that kind of deck as well. And I don't think Gix was around when the mono black deck initially existed, right? So huge pickup for them, I think.
Yeah, so, and talking about more decks in particular, both the two Izzet Phoenix that made the top 8, Mark Stanton and Robert King, they both had Pitlock Prankster over the 3 mana Pieces of the Puzzle.
Why do you say Pitlock? I was actually wondering this because you say Pitlock, and then
sorry.
someone else, I think Oliver Tomiko was also saying Pitlock, and I'm like, is Pitlock a word? I don't think it is, but people keep calling this Pitlock Prankster Pitlock. It's why? What's up with that? Is it like a word in Italian or something? I think he's Italian or something.
So basically, like every time I mention a magic card,
Huh.
it's just a name out of nowhere that I have to learn. So
okay.
I guess I just learned it in the wrong way. I have no idea what.
So is it
Pitlock
coincidence that other
means.
people? Maybe it is just coincidence.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Go on. Anyway.
Yeah,
sorry.
it must.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I thought it was a pitlock, but I guess it's
Picklock.
Picklock.
Strange. Anyway.
Okay. Thank you. And the Amalia combo is the same one that Gracias por tanto won the Mox a few weeks ago. I believe both lists are very, very similar. So,
yeah, you kind of have to be, I suppose.
yeah. But yeah, I believe that overall, looking at the win rate of the decks, I think that Frank Karsten posted already. If you go,
He's a
go
quick
on Twitter.
worker.
Yeah, and again, if you're watching us on YouTube, but you'll see me scrolling through pages and we talk about things in real life. If you're listening on the podcast, that's okay. You can probably follow us along. But yeah, so Frank Carson posted the Pioneer metagame and win rates from the US Regional Championship, and best performing deck was Azura's Control with a 59.6% win rate.
That's
extremely
incredible.
good matchup against Amalia Combo, 68%, and slightly negative. I mean, I wouldn't say slightly negative matchup against Izzet Phoenix with a 39%. So overall, that is the exchange. Also, Azura's Control used to lose to Rakdos mid range, but here this past weekend it won 55% of his matches. So maybe the addition of Smuggler's Copter and Inti over like Bankbuster and other stuff hurt that matchup.
Absolutely, you really feel that Smuggler's Copter is, it's just not as flexible a card as Bankbuster sometimes, right? Because with Bankbuster, you can choose to play it aggressively, or you can choose to play a slower game with drawing the cards. With Smuggler's Copter, you need to be aggressive. So if in a particular game or matchup, your draw doesn't support it, then Smuggler's Copter is just not that useful. If attacking's not good, that card sucks, right? So I think that lack of flexibility really cost the deck in some areas, which is why you see some lists, like for example the one in the top 8 by Anna Wegener, I think it is. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that surname correctly. I believe their list doesn't have Copter, and probably because for that very reason, I assume, because it's Bankbuster's just a more flexible card, which is kind of wild that we just assume that Copter would be stronger. I think maybe Copter is stronger. I think as a card, it's a more powerful card, but I think Bankbuster fits the deck better because mid-range decks have to be flexible, right? So yeah, this was really interesting to see. I think it's a really well built list. Huge fan of this deck, I think.
Yeah, there's the two Rakdos midrange are very different among them. Maybe like even more than 10 slots difference between them.
I mean, it's pretty
list, Yeah, the list by Anna Wegener plays very many removal spells. Plays the 4 Bone Crusher, whereas Paul only plays 1. It's playing like Torture Tower and like a lot more spot removal spell, and it plays Bankbuster over Copter. It doesn't play Inti, so yeah, I mean, this is the like old style Rakdos,
Yeah.
whereas Paul Green is a new style Rakdos.
You know what? The wheel. Don't have to. If it ain't broke, don't have to fix it, right? Which is, Black Red was always very solid. You don't need to. You don't need to radically shift the deck for it to be very good. And she was leading the Swiss, after day one, I think. So, yeah,
Nice.
it's a great result for Rakdos.
I was noticing the lack of Rakdos Sacrifice, a deck that used to dominate a Pioneer before, and similarly to Lotus Field. So the metagame changed that much that these two decks are there, but I believe they had a lesser than 45 win percentage. Let's check Frank Karsten's stats. But no, I guess Rakdos Sacrifice was a 49 plus 1 and Lotus Field was a 46.8. So those two decks, definitely went from like the good decks in Pioneer to bad decks in Pioneer.
I don't know if I would say bad decks in Pioneer. I mean, it's Pioneer. It changed. We've been doing this podcast for a while, and we were following Pioneer, and every new week we would say, "Oh, this deck is doing well," and then the next week another deck was doing well. I don't know. There were bad decks this weekend, maybe, but I'm not gonna say bad decks. I mean, it's just not how Pioneer really works, is it? Like it's, you've seen how the turnover is.
For sure. One more thing I wanted to point out is the Enigmatic Fires. This is a deck dear to my heart, as I won, like, probably the only deck I did well in Pioneer in my life, since I haven't had that much success in Pioneer. But yeah, I really liked Enigmatic Fires. At this point was, 1 year and a few months ago, when I won that tournament in Sofia with Enigmatic Fires, and the metagame was basically a 3 decks metagame. It was Rakdos Midrange, Izzet Phoenix, and Mono Green. Now, Mono Green is gone, and it was, the worst of the 3. You also have a terrible matchup against Azor's Control and Lotus Field. So maybe it's not exciting since Azor's Control is popular, but Lotus Field is less popular. So, it's kind of... this is a very much coin flipping deck. Like, you have extremely polarized matchup.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not really a coin flip. I think it's a way to die, and the way the die is weighted is dependent on how many Rakdos midrange players there are. The more there are, the happier you are to play Fires. I honestly think playing Fires is largely a function of how much Rakdos midrange you expect, and if there's a lot, Tom might go very well for you. So, I'm guessing that's how it went. Seems like they did well against Phoenix too, though. Okay.
Yeah. Now, I used to do well against Phoenix, at least the version I was playing Yorion, but then again, this is so much time ago that I'm sure things changed since then. But yeah, you were okay against Phoenix and the Rakdos, and you're slightly worse against some other decks. But yeah, so overall, Rakdos was the most popular deck. The second most popular deck was Amalia Combo, which was a deck that just came out like a few weeks ago, and similarly to what happened in Japan and Canada, people adapted very quickly and just picked up.
It's impressive.
And there was a lot of topic about card availability. Obviously, we're not going to talk it in this podcast, but that was definitely something that you as a competitive player should be always aware of. And so yeah, Amalia Combo was the third most winning deck with a very, very high win rate.
It's impressive for such a new deck, and one that was quite an unknown quantity to show up in such force. I don't think paper events have historically adapted so quickly, but for these Pioneer RCs,
the Quintorius deck in Japan.
Well, I expected that because in Japan they knew about the deck before the rest of the world. They had people working on it already, and I think card availability is it's much easier in Japan specifically. Like, that isn't impact at the RC level, I would say. Like, it does matter, and so I thought the Japanese event was an exception to the rule. I definitely didn't expect so many people to switch to Amalia, because it's not just about cards, right? It's also that you have to make your decision early enough that you're comfortable playing a deck, because that Amalia deck, it's not easy. It's really not easy. There's a lot of tricky stuff going on there, so people had to have made up their mind quickly enough to be comfortable playing the deck, and I assume they were, since the deck won quite a bit. So I don't know, maybe there's a fundamental shift in how these events work. I mean, I suppose the incentives are also higher, to be fair. We haven't really had events like the Regional Championship before that are, well, they're not open, but they're much more accessible than events like the Pro Tour, yet have very high stakes. So that might be why we're seeing a change in how these metagames work compared to things that we might have compared to in the past, like GPs, which were much lower stakes, right? Yeah, it's really interesting, something to think about.
Yeah, one more deck that added sorry, is tremendous a negative or a positive adjective?
Neither necessarily. Tremendous. I mean, people often use it positively, but I would say that the word itself is neutral. Like you can say something was tremendously good or tremendously bad. It's
Oh,
like
okay, okay.
grande,
It's just
grande, grande.
I understand.
Yeah,
Okay, it's like very much.
yeah.
Anyway, Greasefang had a terrible win percentage with a
Where is
39.5.
Greasefang on this
It used to
list?
be
Where is it? I can't even
yeah,
find it. Where is it?
it's at the bottom.
Oh my! Oh
It's at the
no!
bottom.
Wow, it's
Yeah,
below.
and
Below Blue White Lotus Field. That's oh Go on.
yeah, so the Greasefang deck when Copter was unbanned, people were like screaming like, "Oh, Greasefang is going to be better than ever with Copter." He definitely wasn't at this particular event.
Look,
Maybe we'll fight back, but a 27 win percent against Amalia is maybe
look.
and alongside a lot of other
I'll tell you,
negative
all the people
matchups.
that were screaming about Copter and Greasefang probably they almost certainly hadn't played a game with the deck because it was so early that we saw these reactions. But if you do play with those cards, you will very quickly realize that they don't work very well together. Um, so yeah, that's not too surprising to me. The metagame also didn't shift in a way that was good for Greasefang at all. I would say that's a really big part of this. So I mean, look at these matchups. I mean, of course, the matchup's not going to be good because a deck with this low win rate will not have many good matchups. That's why it has such a low win rate. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's rough.
there's another deck in this spread that I was playing for fun. I don't know why. The Quintorius combo deck. So I had for some reason I was attracted to this deck since I hadn't really explained it, but yeah, the nature of playing a one card combo deck, I guess, attracts me. But it was not very good, and I see it here with a decent like 64-66 record. I don't know if I've seen anyone in the first page playing the Quintorius deck, but it is kind of funny, right? That deck used to be the most popular deck just 2 weeks ago. Didn't see any card banned, and now just disappeared again.
Well, I mean, the deck wasn't very it was very popular, but it was also marked by how badly it performed, as well as being very popular, right? So it's not really that surprising that it would just vanish. Like people would have seen just how horrendous the results. I mean, like you wouldn't expect. You see these results. You see Greasefang's win rate, right? And you think no one's going to play Greasefang going forward, right? The same thing just happened to Quintorius. Quintorius just had a horrible win rate, and then people didn't want to play it. That's simple as that. I think.
Yeah. The another interesting deck that I see in the top 20 is the John Transmogrify, the deck that won in Japan. I remember this deck used to play Karn, but I guess obviously you can't do that anymore.
Yep.
I'm not sure how much that impacts, but yeah, overall, I think that Pioneer now the gameplay of Pioneer definitely looks more interesting, as again, it's, I believe, very fun to play a matchup like Rakdos against Phoenix, or probably just Phoenix against anything, honestly.
Yeah, I'll say that, it was very enjoyable. Like, one of the matches I played against Isaac in testing, we thought, I thought this was the most interesting game I've played all year. Like, not even close. I was like, wow, this is incredible. And like, I literally screenshotted it because I had so much fun. That's like incredible.
What decks were you playing?
Phoenix against Blue Black Phoenix.
Rakdos? Oh, okay, so that deck did poorly, I believe. Grixis Phoenix. I saw.
Yeah, it's not Greasefang tier, but that's not good.
Yeah, Grixis Phoenix did so much worse than it's at Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of crazy. But yeah, the deck that won in Canada, the Blue Black Phoenix, playing red only for Arclight Phoenix.
Yeah, it's really more Blue Black Phoenix than Grixis Phoenix. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I think it was a very cool event to follow. I got to see only one match in the top 8 when I saw some Ledger Shredder being thrown away by a Supreme Verdict. And then I
it's too sad. Just too sad for your pal Ledger Shredder.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm so sorry you had to see that.
But and then I saw that in the final, I believe Daniel Weiser, I believe he beat back-to-back Phoenix in the
yes, he did.
semifinals
Yes,
and then finals.
He played against the two Is It Phoenix players. Yes.
Yeah. So I guess he flipped the narrative of the one that Carson is
Well,
posting, where
he is a
Control
very
lost to
very strong
Phoenix.
player. I would say he's very very good. And he's particularly very good at blue white as well. He's extremely comfortable with blue white, and even he has a very good sense of humor. He said, when we were making our metagame predictions, he said, "Man, I hope blue white control is the second most popular deck. Like you guys are saying it might be, because it's by far my best matchup." So he was the only one to play blue white from our group, and he received some mockery over it. I may or may not have been part of some of that mockery. There's really no way of telling. And he took it very well, and he joined in a bit. He rolls with it really well. He's got a great sense of humor about blue white control as well, especially. So yeah, I mean, the fact that I think he's so comfortable with the deck is very realistic about it. He knows very well how to play it. Probably helps a lot in a long and interactive matchup like is it Phoenix, right? So it's not too surprising, He's very very good player. He's a world champion of another card game as well, I believe.
One of the one more data I wanted to point out was Boros Convoke. That was a deck that people thought it would become extremely good with a second Threat Inspector coming in a few months with a new set, but it had a terrible win rate against Amalia combo in particular, 19%.
Yeah,
so
makes sense.
If they don't ban the Amalia combo, which we don't expect to happen.
I don't think
think
they
that
should. It's very. Why would they?
Yeah.
Why are we talking about bans already?
No, I'm just. No, I
Okay,
know.
yeah.
I don't know why I said it. I don't know why I said
Okay,
it. So.
yeah.
We were talking about something about the Amalia combo, Anthony, in the Discord. Do you want to share it with the listeners?
Which thing? Sorry.
The fact that it may change the rule to
Oh,
avoid the draws.
oh yes. So I mean, there is an unfortunate thing with the Amalia combo where a player making the Wild Growth Walker indestructible can cause the loop to force a draw, because Amalia, the design of the card prevents it from going infinite, because once Amalia gets to exactly 20 power, she destroys all of your other creatures, which includes the other combo pieces, in this case Wild Growth Walker. If you make the Wild Growth Walker indestructible, then Amalia's not going to stop exploring, and because you can't stop exploring, the game will end in a draw, which is a problem if you can do things like make your opponent's creatures indestructible, or change Amalia's power so she skips 20 power and keeps exploring. Stuff like that, right? You can play stuff like Rimrock Knight as well that modifies power. Or you can force a draw yourself if going off with the combo would not be enough to win the game. So for example, which is most commonly against like Lotus or something, like, against Lotus you can destroy all the board, make a 20-20, pass the turn, and lose the game. Not even close. Okay? So yeah, this deck can force draws, which is maybe a tournament logistics problem, because the Amalia deck is also not the fastest deck in the world. It's, a combo deck, plays some patient games, has lots of life gain, which is a little annoying if you play like half an hour of a game and then someone forces a draw. It's not just annoying for you, it's annoying for everybody else, because your game's going to go to time, right? The more games go to time, it's a problem. So, if they could make some kind of rule change so that wasn't a thing, that would be better. I think it's not like a huge issue as is, because it's kind of fringe, right? Like, you need someone to actually need to force a draw, which is like not that common. The issue I have with that is that it doesn't have to be that common to hold up the whole tournament, right? If it happens enough times. So yeah, I mean, they could do it some ways. They can change how loops work, but maybe more easily they can change the explore mechanic, for example. Like, they can just make it so the explore mechanic does not trigger if there's no cards left in your library. So it just works the same, the 99 point whatever % of the time when you explore, you have something in your library, and then it just doesn't do anything if you don't. That would be very easy. They could just errata that the same way they errata the cascade mechanic, and life would be a little easier for us, I suppose. It's not a huge deal. I really think it's really not a big deal. It's very easy for people to make a mountain out of a molehill. But
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I raised, and Anthony came up with this clever solution. So if you see the amount of draws that happen in this weekend, you have Azor's Control with 53 draws,
classic.
And then you have Amalia Combo with 36 draws. And Azor's Control, well, it makes sense. As Magic players, we're used to just
we've all
control.
We know how much of our lives we've given to waiting for blue-white control players at the end of the round, right?
Exactly. But I've read something on Twitter, I don't know from who, that there was a mirror match of Amalia combo deck that game one lasted for 32 minutes and they had a draw. Like, they they didn't finish the
Yeah,
game. They
yeah. I
played
think
32
I think yeah, it
minutes
was
and
Bobby,
didn't even
right?
have a
Yeah,
winner.
yeah. Bobby fought Nelly.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so they played for half an hour and more, and they didn't even have a winner at the end.
Mm.
And because one of the two players was losing, and they forced a draw, just like you mentioned.
Yes.
So I think that the solution would just be that. I mean, one possible solution would just be that if you have no deck, then you just can't explore. You end the stack there, right?
Easiest, cleanest
And you
solution.
pass the
Yeah.
turn. And you can either attack if this is can attack, or pass the turn and then your opponent's turn to just do their things, and then lose if you don't have deck anymore next turn. So I think that this would be, I think, nice for for the
Sure.
format.
Yeah. Why not? I mean, I think it's a small change, but one that would be very welcome. So maybe we'll see it.
Yeah,
Maybe we won't.
rather. Yeah, I mean, especially in modern, we have seen a ban list recently because of tournament things. Like we've seen Yorin ban, we've seen
Mm-hmm.
Up the Beanstalk ban, which weren't justified by the win rate, but just because they were like slow decks or
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
holding the tournament. So I think that we don't need to ban Amalia, just
I think it's healthy
but
for the
you
format.
could definitely
Yeah.
you could nerf the rule,
Yeah.
like even
Yeah.
change the rule
Just
to
take out exactly the problematic part, right? You don't have to
exactly.
throw the baby out with the bathwater, as it were.
Yeah. All right, and I think that might be it for our Pioneer talk. What do you suggest we move to Modern?
Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay, so unfortunately, we don't have all the challenge results because Magic Online is somewhat like down. They had some issue with results. Like they posted every single tournament, like every single record from the first to the 125th place, which is strange. And then they just stopped it because they said it was a mistake, and now we don't have the results
Right.
anymore. But we do have two modern challenge and one starter challenge to talk about, and well, there's a lot to talk about in these events because they had a very interesting winner. So on Friday, the tournament was won by Sodek on Dredge. Dredge is an archetype that got basically banned with Fateless Looting ban, and then hasn't really seen that much play after, especially with Dothy Voidwalker being in the main deck and Endurance and etc. Despite all of that, Sodek went 9-1. It's easier, so that's very good. I played a league with Dredge on Monday, and I played against my first 3 round. 2 decks had main deck Dotty Voidwalker, and one of them had main deck Endurance with a lot of ways to get it from the deck, like Court of Calling and Edge Evolution. So I didn't have a great result, but I'm sure that Sodek was able to dodge these cards as yeah, you basically you don't even have any answer to. I guess you have a Conflagrate or 2 Dark Blast, but it's not that great, right?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I definitely didn't expect Dredge to reappear. That's Dredge, though,
And
isn't it?
then yeah, and then in the finals, he defeated actually a deck with main deck Dotty Walker in Ores of Scam, and this is has many people speculated or thought after the ban of Fury that this deck would reappear, and yeah, it is reappearing. You have now Solitude instead of Fury, you have Stoneforge Mystic instead of Fable, and you don't have a replacement for Ragavan, and yeah, you're just playing a mid-range deck just like the previous Reckless Scam, I would say.
I guess so. I mean, this looks clearly less powerful, but I mean, it's still a very functional deck, probably. As Mana type, let's
I
go.
guess
How exciting!
Manatite is your one drop of choice. Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Today I played a league with this deck. I don't know how it's possible, but I played against 2 decks with Cavern of Souls who always dodge my Manatite. I'm not having the best runs these days on
oh dear.
on Magical. And then another super interesting deck that made the top 4 is this Grex controlled by Wariel, which is a Magical Land user that I always follow since I really like their deck. And he's playing Flame of Honor Snapcaster Mage, which is a combinations that I find it powerful, but I haven't really seen uh, you know dominating or showing up in modern. This list is much different than the usual one. It doesn't play the One Ring. It's cheaper basically, but you still have a lot of 3 drops with 40 Shanatide Binder, which is also Wizard for Flame of Honor. So this is something that I found interesting.
Yeah. This is definitely a direction that I also wouldn't expect. I don't know if I would call this a control deck. Really, I think it's much
That's
closer.
true.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true. Actually, that's the comment that he pointed at me. He said it's not a control, that's a mid range.
yeah,
You're right. It's not a control. I just labeled control because it's what Magic Goldfish says, but yeah,
yeah.
that's definitely not a control deck.
Well, this looks like maybe it's a good version of Murktide. I'll tell you that. So
Well, speaking of Murktide, you do have some Murktides in these two challenges, so it's there, it's there. There's also a scam list in the other challenge
all
that
right,
is basically the same as the one that Mariluz used to win
Barcelona.
in Barcelona. Yes, indeed. And yeah, I mean, I
Okay.
have wrote an article for China Farbol about my updated version of Scam, which yeah, obviously taking a lot of ideas from Mariluth and a card that a card that I dislike, and I want to hear your opinion, is the Malaki Rebirth. I always found that whenever you Malaki Rebirth your grief,
Hmm.
it's just so much worse than whenever Undying Evil or Not Dead After All your grief. Just that missing that +1/+1 is really like
Sure. I
the
mean,
difference between winning and losing.
well, I mean, it's weaker. I don't think the card is necessarily worse, but I think it is more important now than it used to be. So because you have fewer like priority cards to return with the evoke effect, alright, I'm done. There's fewer cards to scam out. Like you don't want to play as many of the narrow cards, so you don't want to play like for Not Dead After All, and also like copies of Undying Evil. So Malakir Rebirth is like a lower risk version of that. Like you buy out a bit, so it is weaker, but because your deck is less consistent at doing that, you actually want the weaker and more consistent option because you're going to play fair games more often. So it makes a lot of sense to me that Malakir Rebirth is better now than it used to be. Because your deck just doesn't play that unfair game where that extra point of power is more important anymore. Right? So you still want to have some more than 4 of this effect to be able to grief scam consistently, but you're not willing to pay the cost of playing all of them because it's not that consistent with the Furies gone. So yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to me. I could see playing more even. I know it's like not powerful, but like of course like that's the whole point. Like when you use it, it's gonna feel weaker because it is. But sometimes you'll get to play it as a land, and it will be a hell of a lot better than than the Undying Evil or whatever when you got to cast a shield or a hard cast a grief or you're a mid range deck. You're gonna have fine
Yeah.
uses for mana. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say in my list I have 2 copies of Season Pyro, which is another way that you can use your Undying Evil on.
Sure. Yeah.
Like
Orcish
uh,
Bowmaster. It's all
yeah,
good.
no,
Ragavan.
yeah, exactly, or Dothy. But
Good
like
creatures.
overall, I just found that, for example, I played against the Ors of Scam, and they, ephemerated my their grief on turn one, taking away 3 cards of me. But at the end of the day, I ended up winning the game at 3 or 4 life, which is the time that scamming with Ephemerate or Malik Rebirth gives you, because they have like maybe 4 or 5 damage less overall. And I think this is why I suggest to not play with Malaki Rebirth, but to play with the uh, Undying Evil instead.
Yeah,
This
I,
is
I would go the other way. I
my
just don't think you
point.
compare those. Like, I think if you cut Malakir Rebirth, you add a land. You don't add an Undying effect.
Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I added a land.
yeah, so you really can't
I
really
played
compare them,
21.
can you? Unless you think you can cut a different spell, but then, we're doing different things then, right?
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that's true. Um, yeah. Anyway, I believe that Rakdos Scam is still gonna be the strongest fair deck in Modern. Modern right now is a territory.
This did not go the
It's a
way we thought.
territory of. Yeah. I mean, I just think that Modern right now, the combo decks are just way too good. You have like the Yugmoth, the Amulet, Leaving End. The combo decks are just so much better than the answer
It's
at
the
the moment
opposite
for
of
me.
Pioneer, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of fell back in love with Modern after Modern Horizons 2, when the amount of answers
hmm
outclassed the amount of threats.
Yeah.
But now we're back to the
Yeah, I'm
just
I'm
Modern,
not gonna
so
say
unfair.
I fell in love with it, but I definitely enjoyed the pre-modern Horizons to modern much less. So I think the problem that people have is that all of these answers tend to they show up a lot, right? Like you tend to see the same free spell answers exist in modern. But in my view, the alternative is that we just people don't play the answers, which is what happened before, right? So Modern Horizons 2 specifically filled this gap with all these very powerful answers. I mean, because the format lacked them before. They needed to fill that hole in the format. And that's why we see them over and over again. So you tend to see less deck diversity as a result of it. But clearly Modern is still quite diverse. And I think the games are honestly better as a result. Because sometimes it's frustrating when there are side effects. Like, obviously, the specific mechanics of cards like Grief and Fury lead to things like the scam decks, and sometimes that can be frustrating. But overall, like, being able to have access to cards like Solitude and Force of Negation and so on from the Modern Horizon sets makes Modern a lot more interactive and pushes it in a direction which I think is more enjoyable, especially for competitive play. So, yeah, I think these free answers, as much as people don't enjoy them a lot of the time, are kind of a necessary evil. And I'm really optimistic about Modern Horizons 3, because I think that might fix the problem that people have, which is not necessarily that with the answers, I think. Like, maybe in some sense it is, but I think the bigger issue that people tend to have with them is how it affects the decks and the way the games play out. But if there are more answers on that level, then we're going to get that more diversity in gameplay as well, right? Like, you're not going to always have Grief. Like, there'll be other cards on that power level that encourage interactive gameplay, I think. So yeah, I think, and it won't be as fundamental a shift, because like Modern Horizons 2 was like Wizards was like, these effects don't exist in Modern, which leads to the metagame looking a certain kind of way, which is not very interactive. So what can we do to fix that? So there was a fundamental change in how Modern worked. Whereas Modern Horizons 3, I would expect that it just increases on that. It builds on what Modern Horizons 2 did, I'd imagine. So I'm very optimistic. I don't know. I think Modern's really close to being a pretty fun format, really. I like the Modern Horizons set a lot. I don't know if that's a popular view, but as a competitive player, I think they're great for Modern. I would absolutely hate Modern if they didn't exist. So, yeah.
I definitely also, I'm on the camp of waiting for Modern Horizons 3, because I believe that Modern looked much better before the bans. Again, we're super very little time passed since the bans, but I just don't love the fact that Amulet and Yogma just feel unbeatable to me. And yeah, but like, also I wanted to talk about one of the things you said about the Force of Negation, because in Legacy it's true, Force of Will and Force of Negation keep the combo deck in check, but funnily enough, Force of Negation in Modern is played by the combo decks. So it's played by Living End and Rhinos. They use it to protect their Violent Outburst.
Yeah, that is a bit of a weird one. Yeah.
So it is, kind of unfortunate that Force of Negation is supposed to keep the combo deck in check, but instead makes them strong.
It's just how Violent Outburst works.
Overall, yeah, exactly. But overall, right now we're definitely in the combo world in Modern. So, again, obviously, if you go to your FNM of 4 rounds, you might play against other decks. But if you play the leagues or the challenges, definitely make sure to be ready for this Amulet deck is I just can't beat it. It's so good right now.
Really?
It'll definitely be my first deck in the power rankings.
If you want to beat it, I'm sure you can. Historically, Amulet has it has weak points. Just start playing more Blood Moons or something. I don't know. Can't you do that?
Yeah. I mean, you could.
That's what happens.
More Blood Moon,
Amulet turns up.
This deck.
People I'm done with this.
This deck is always resilient, I would say, to Blood Moon, thanks to the print of Boseiju, and I guess this list in particular doesn't play the tutor. What's it called? The Foundation Breaker.
Right.
Some people, they play like Generous Ant and Foundation Breaker. Spelunking has been a nice addition as well to the deck. Maybe not insanely great, but obviously
it's a boost. It's a
weakness.
Boost. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that like you're gonna definitely have like a good matchup or just win the game as soon as you slam Blood Moon, but like I have to assume that that has to be a very good direction against Amulet Time. Like, even if they can answer it, I think it must be very good still. Like, I mean, I get they can Boseiju it, and then you keep playing the game, but
for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, we just have to see. Let's give a little bit more space for people to react with things like that, before we.
Yeah, for sure. You also have one more reason why Blood Moon isn't amazing like it was in the past is the one rank.
Mm-hmm. Same as for Tron, yeah.
One of the reasons. Yeah, exactly. Tron also has a Oblivion Stone, so it's even weaker against Tron.
Yeah.
I don't know if I mentioned it on the podcast, but 2 weeks ago in Barcelona, I played 2 main deck Blood Moon in Murktide. I played against Tron twice, and
not that good.
The same play pattern happened twice. I played turn 3 Blood Moon main deck, and my opponent tapped 3 Tron lands and played Oblivion Stone. And a few turns later, I lost the game. So the old concept that Blood Moon is good against Tron
It
is
was never
is
that true, to be
old.
fair. Like, even before all of this, it wasn't that true, because if you didn't put pressure, they would just play their lands, and then they just tap all of them and put something into play. And it was already less true after they printed, the One Ring and Can't, because they only needed 4 to
The
play the
One
game.
Ring.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, but like before the One Ring, the mana curve of Tron was very high. You used to play 4 Con Liberated, like very high. So sometimes like you play Blood Moon and their hand is strangled. Like now they have to get
Sometimes.
rid of Blood Moon first and then continue to play the
Well,
game.
that's not true.
Whereas
If
now,
you had to pressure them, though, that's the thing. If you saw decks like, for example, the very old like Blood Moon control decks like Blue Moon, those decks were bad against Tron because you put a Blood Moon into play, but then you don't pressure them, so they just play lands, right?
yeah,
So they didn't have to
I mean,
answer it.
I was I was mostly referring to like Murktide with Blood Moon before the One Ring against Ron, which
Yeah, to
used to be a
some
good
extent.
matchup.
Yeah, like they have other ways
Yeah,
around it as things. Like, for example, they can play like cheaper threats as well. Like, I used to like sideboarding cards in like card Signiverse or a Battle Skull or whatever that you could cast through a Blood Moon, and that would help you play the game.
Ragtusk.
Yeah, like cards like that, you know. So I don't know. I
Mhm.
didn't. I thought it was obviously good against Tron, but it was not really like the KO that a lot of people thought it was, or that it tended to be against Amulet before a bunch of these
Yeah,
changes.
Tron. Yeah, Tron definitely living one of its worst moment right now. With Amulet being uh,
Yeah,
popular and great, and also Tishana's Tidebinder from Rhinos, Grixis Wizard just coming out and making the matchup less good than it used to be. So
yeah, but
uh,
don't think
we'll
people are
see.
overall upset about that. Tron not the most sympathetic deck that has existed. I'll say that much.
No, no,
So
for sure.
all right, suck at Tron players. It's like the only deck I own too. I don't care. It's all good.
No. All right, and yeah, why don't we move to standard because I believe that you had some. I don't know. Did you play any standard challenges this
No, I
weekend?
was just completely absorbed by the USRC. Like, I was so, man. I haven't been that excited for a Magic event on the other side of the world in such a long time. Really, like, wow. I was just extremely invested in the USRC. So I planned to do other things. Like, I thought I might play a standard challenge, and I thought I might play in the Arena Open, but I was too excited by the USRC, so I didn't at all. Yeah.
All right, so once again, as I mentioned before, Magic Online doesn't really show the results of the both challenges, but we have the results from one from Twitter. Daniel Goschel won the Sunday challenge with just a classic, or
Oh,
does
it's
it,
a little
is it
updated. It's a
different?
little
Like,
updated. So, he told us that he was going to put trumpeting Carnosaur in the deck, and there's a very specific reason for this, and it's that he felt that a lot of Domain's best matchups had become much worse because the black midrange decks had adapted in a way that made them much more able to disrupt Domain, and the specific card that changed everything was Deep Cavern Bat, right? So specifically the curve that he felt he was just losing to was them going Deep Cavern Bat into Gix, and then it was actually matchup was kind of tough. So he needed more answers to that card. You can play cards like Virtue of Persistence, and that kind of works, but instant speed answers are way better against those decks because it's really awkward if you're tapped out and the bat catches you and takes your answer. And also because like the Virtue is like itself like a significantly worse card to have to like hard cast because you're already like so choked on like 7 mana threats, right? That adding more is not that helpful. But the Carnosaur is much better for the deck, both because it's an instant answer and because it's not like literal 7 mana. He did have to adjust the mana a little bit. He was like, I'm going to have to change the mana for the deck to be able to figure out how to play Carnosaur, and I don't know, he added a mountain, so I guess it didn't require that much of a change, which makes sense, right? When you search for a bunch of basics anyway, that maybe the mana base change to accommodate cards like Trumpeting Carnosaur is not as drastic as one might have imagined intuitively. So yeah, that was the big change for him. He figured that if you add Carnosaur to the deck, you're going to get a lot better against the decks that kind of push Domain down for a bit. So that was good to see. Daniel's been working a lot on the Domain deck, and he's been studying a lot. Actually, earlier today he asked me questions about about the Domain match that Reed played against me because he was like, "Oh, what happened here and whatnot?" Because he went back and studied them because he's so he loves this deck, it seems. So he's actually studying, and he'll put out a guide soon, I think, about it. If don't know what's going on with that, but I think he'll talk about the Domain deck in some depth, which is nice.
yeah, I also have a my my teammate and friend of mine, Beekeeper Sean, who I almost daily talk to on Discord. He top 8'd the Mox playoff with and also qualified via the Mox challenge with Domain. So there's definitely a lot of
you can see him
a
in the
lot
top
of
four in
this
here.
deck
You
going
see,
on.
he's literally on your screen right now. Look,
Oh yeah,
he's right there.
oh wow, I didn't
Yeah,
notice this.
yeah. Because I remember
Right.
Daniel mentioned he was in the top 8 as well. Yeah, he's there.
Yeah. But I don't know his list is how different it is, but it definitely does look super cool. Like, yeah. So, somebody mentioned on our podcast that the RCQ season is starting and it's gonna be standard.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's pretty exciting.
Okay.
It's
It
some good
is. It
games.
is. So yeah, starting since next week, I think we're gonna pause the Pioneer talk and start the standard talk.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
alongside modern. We will can rotate some other formats, but overall we will definitely be focusing on modern and standard going forward.
Yep, I think that's totally fine. I assume that's what lines up with what a lot more people are going to be interested in as well, actually, because we can't talk about Pioneer because of the PT, but obviously the number of players who are playing in the PT is much less than the people who are preparing for the modern RCs coming up at the beginning of next year. If I'm not mistaken, they're all early next year. Is that right? The modern RCs. And the
Yeah, so the European Regional Championship will be at the end of January, which is actually not that far.
That's very
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah, that is very soon, and I have no idea what to play. I am devastated.
Oh, I'm sure you'll figure it out. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So there's the modern RCs and the standard RCQs. So I think for a lot of players, those are the formats that are going to be important right now. And yeah, I'm very excited to be working on Pioneer. Like, I'm very excited. Like, Pioneer is great.
So
great gameplay.
the other challenge that we have the results of, again, we have all the 57 people deck list on MTG Goldfish right now. I'm scrolling through. Has a top 8 with 7 different archetypes.
Nice.
So, pretty diverse. I believe this is the record after the
Swiss.
The Swiss, so we don't actually know who won the tournament.
Okay.
But yeah, I see. Is this the Rakdos deck by Venom 1, the one with the banned card in Pioneer? Yes, it is. Geological Upraiser.
Yeah, just totally fair card here. Just honest Bloodbraid Elf.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Not legal in Pioneer, but you can definitely play it and cascade it into a 3-drop, getting some 7 mana worth of value for just 4 mana of pay. So
this is very good, card. Honest Magic right here. I don't know. It's fun. It's just, you have creatures, you have removal. The games go differently. You play a bunch of different types of games. Like sometimes this deck, you got to be the beatdown. Sometimes you got to be a controlling deck. Sometimes you got lots of modal cards. I think this. I like it when this kind of deck's good. Yeah.
Honestly, though, this is a cursed card for me because the team I'm currently testing with, the Team Worldly Council, has played 2 standard event where most of the team both times played the Cruelty of Gigs, and they most of the time did poorly. So
yeah, well,
everyone just
the second time, Mangu, I could not believe my eyes. The first time I was like, okay, maybe I'm just missing something about this deck. Totally possible. Then Zen had one of his worst results ever with the deck, and I'm like, okay, maybe the deck wasn't that good, but that's fine. Not everyone submits a good deck every time. But then when you all resubmitted it for Worlds, I was like, come on, what's going on?
All right, to defend myself, I wasn't playing standard. I just joined them for limited.
Okay.
We had an amazing limited preparation, and I was able to save Lorenzo Terlizzi, who ended up top 8 Worlds because
he didn't play the deck.
He had a testing session with this deck where he went like something like 1-9 on against Mono Red, and then something like 2-7 against Esper, and I was like, please change. Like,
wow.
Just don't play this deck. It doesn't matter if the rest of the people, doesn't agree with you. You can't, because obviously, like, you don't have to blindly trust other people. You have to trust your results.
Well, maybe I don't know. I don't know. Like,
I think it's important.
Well, as a counterpoint, like, I played Golgari against Domain like a little bit before decklist submission as well. I think I went 1-4 in matches, but I was like, I don't know. I kind of like how the matches played out, so let's go with that. So I mean, under the same logic, I would not have submitted.
Yeah, but that was supposed to be a bad matchup, whereas Esper and Mono Red, according to them, wasn't a bad matchup.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, that's what this. Anyway,
Yeah, anyway,
let's
yeah.
not bully the people who still in the case of Zen, he actually had a very good result
Oh, did he?
with the
Oh,
deck.
that's good to hear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. He had the classic like experience where in one PT you do well in limited and poorly constructed. In the next PT you do good in constructed and poorly limited. To
Uh,
have if you could only
he
merge
he needs to
with the
learn the secrets
experiences.
from Simon and Javier, where you do well at both of them in all of the Pro Tours. You know, that's the secret to their success. I'll tell everybody that that's how you do it. You win a lot limited, you win a lot of constructed, and you do it for 3 Pro Tours in a row, and then you become Player of the Year. It's like he just figured it out. You know.
Yeah. So yeah, whenever I see the card cruelty of gigs, I just feel bad. I can't.
Can't look at it.
I can't look at this
It's
card.
broken your heart too many times. Not again. Never
No,
again.
man, and I wasn't even playing it.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, take your
because I
cursor
did
off
it.
it then. Come
Yeah,
on, move your mouse. Take it off your screen. Yeah, there we go.
yeah.
Let's look at Sheldred or something. All right,
I love
Carnosaurus.
the sight of trumpeting
Because it's a
Carnosaur.
carny, right?
That's that's a red carny. Yes, indeed. No, okay. So I this weekend I have some cool events. So during the end of December, the Christmas season, all the local game store around my area organize team events. In this case, I will be playing on Friday night a team event. Will I'll be the Pauper seat, and then on Saturday afternoon another team event. Will I'll be playing the Legacy seat. So a lot of for fun magic for me going on this weekend. What about you?
I will be. I don't know, Mango. Do you not have a Pro Tour to test for?
Hmm?
I'm just trying to make you feel.
Never
I'm
heard of
trying. I'm
it.
just trying to make you feel bad. Nah, I'm not.
Oh, you can't. You can't. It's it's impossible to make me feel bad. Don't worry.
It's not gonna stop me from trying.
Yeah. No,
Nah, I
yeah.
don't know. I
The
don't know much. I'll just be working on things. Like, yeah. I don't know. That's all I want to do right
no.
now. So,
So the things I'll be doing with my tournament now, before going to the tournament, is making a list of cards I need to buy for standard
right.
because I like to be prepared and own my cards so that whenever I have to build the deck, I already own all the cards.
Mm-hmm.
This is something I
What
love.
you
Just
wait?
also
You just buy everything?
yeah, I just treat Magic as like I just would like to own everything. Yeah, so I'm looking at Topiary Stomper,
Yeah.
which is definitely a card I don't own, so I have to buy those and so on and so forth. Also, I want to see how many triumphs I have. Yeah, I find it so
Well, this
fun.
this
But
this must
again,
suck for
I'm
you
just
then,
like,
because the format is so diverse. You have to buy lots of different cards, then, right?
a standard is cheap. Like
Yeah, it is.
once
It
once
is.
you have the Shieldred,
And that's the
once
thing,
you have the
though, right?
Shieldred,
That's the thing. Like, expensive cards are expensive because they're good in other formats too. So it's not like the old model standard, where like before you bought a standard deck. A long, long time ago, you'd buy a standard deck, and it would all the cards would just collapse in value once they rotated out. That's not true anymore because the expensive cards are just like Triumphs and Sheoldred are the expensive cards, right? Atrax is like
and Leyline Binding.
yeah, Land by like whatever. Like those
Atrax.
cards don't drop in price at all. Like cards like the Meat Hook Massacre or the Great Henge were like very expensive in standard, completely unrelated to the level of standard play. So I think standard is actually like very cheap because the cards that are only played in standard are very cheap because they're just way more available because of the way the boosters work nowadays. Because there are more multi-format staples that take up all that value. I don't know. It seems like the idea that people had about their standard decks losing value when they rotate is way less true than it used to be. So that's a point that I just thought of it. I was just reminded of when you were talking about that fact, right? Like it's not that expensive to get the standard cards, I think.
Yeah. Also, for example, the Amalia combo popped up, and I was able to basically get I already own every old card except the new one because
Do you know how hard
the
it was
decks somehow were.
finding the wild growth
Yeah.
walkers? I did not think I would have to put them
Yeah.
in a safe place.
No, yeah, I'm so. I guess I am more precise than other people. I
Probably.
always divide by color. Even after they rotate, I still put them in a binder of green old playables, so that it was super
Wow.
easy for me to pick them
Yeah,
up.
that is.
Yeah,
Oh.
and also with the return to ranks as well, it was very easy to find them.
Oh, Bobby says he owns some completely. Bobby Fortinelli, he owns some completely absurd number of return to the ranks, but he couldn't find them. He bought them at some point, and he moved them to a box that he's got labeled that says failed specs. And when he looked in there, they weren't there, so he just had no idea where they were. It's just been a terrible month for Bobby. You know, they banned Khan, the Great Creator. He can't find his 30 copies of Return to the Ranks or whatever it is. It's just a disaster.
Right. When in many years Misery Shadow will be a staple, it's one of my fail specs. Misery Shadow.
Oh, too bad nobody warned you.
No. Yeah, no. Why? Did you warn me?
Yeah. Probably not as strongly about stuff with Dream Eater or Teferi Master of Time. I think with Misery Shadow, I was like, I don't really see this card being played. Like even if it's good, it would not be played. Like you wouldn't play many of them. You know, it wasn't like Teferi Master of Time where I used a lot of very harsh language and graphic imagery and graphic images to try to stop you, and then you ignored all of that anyway and lost a lot of money, if you recall correctly. But
it's okay.
You know, like it wasn't Shadow wasn't that bad. You know, but
so the foil Teferi what is it? What's it called?
Master
again?
of Time.
The foil Teferi Master of Time, it was €100, but it went to my LGS that I love and always go to. So I think that was a good one. The fail specs were like some online purchases, so yeah, they were definitely failed specs.
Well, I'm glad that you're a philanthropist, Mengu. Very glad to hear it.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. All right. I think that wraps up the episode as always. Thank you so much for listening to the Carnies, and if you want to join our Patreon, it's patreon.com/Carnies, and yeah, have a great week.
Yeah, cheers guys.